everyone, and welcome to Fabric Executive Insights. I'm your host, Patrick LeBlanc. And today, we're going to talk about a little data warehouse and a little lake house. But before we get into all this, Rachini, Tino, why don't you tell the people who you are and what you do?
Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rachini Mossavi. I'm the Chief Analytics Officer for UNC Health in North Carolina.
All right, Tino.
And I'm Tino. Oh, my voice carries. I'm Tino Tereshko. I run product for Fabric Data Warehouse and SQL Endpoint.
All right, so data warehouse, Tino, lake house. I'm stuck. Why can't it just be one house? But if you could tell us, so you said data warehouses. When do I go lake house, warehouse? That's a tough one.
Yeah. It's well, we have like an embarrassment of riches, right?
Yeah.
We give our customers a lot of options. I think the best way to think about it is maybe in terms of like vehicles, cars. I think the lake house is kind of like a big diesel that you can pull a lot of stuff behind you and carries a lot of takes a second to get going. And the warehouse is more of like a fast car that goes around the corners and goes from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. But ultimately there's, we have guides and they both kind of complement each other. In a medallion architecture, right, typically people use the lake house to start and then warehouse towards the end.
Yeah.
And most of our customers use both together.
Yeah. So, Rachini, this is good. This leads me into my first question. And so, before Fabric, though, right? Before Fabric, before I have this one pane of glass where I can just one click create everything that I want. What were some of your challenges? So we're talking about picking between the lake house and the warehouse, but there's other data challenges that you can definitely face to help you drive down this. And so at UNC, what made modernization unavoidable?
Yeah. So, when we started to really look at modernization, it was really more of the world was shifting fast.
Yeah.
Our data needed flexibility. We needed the ability to be able to put our data scientists in the same environment as all of our regular BI engineers that were developing these great insights for all of our executives across the healthcare system.
Yeah.
And having that ability to have a flexible environment that could grow with us as our data becomes more real time, as we are taking on more information from wearables, from different sensing devices. As we think about AI in healthcare, we needed to modernize to create a foundation for all of that.
And so when you step back and thought about this modernization, what was non-negotiable? What did you have to have?
Yeah. So first of all, I keep saying flexibility because the reality is that we don't even know how to plan for the future.
That's true.
Of where all of this is going.
Yeah.
So, what we really looked for is who could be a partner for us to be able to build that foundation that starts with let's migrate our existing data warehouse from an on-prem system to a cloud, architecture. And from there, it's really, well, what are the plugins? What allows us to do better with our source data that we're bringing in and make that more reliable? Reliability was a non-negotiable. Right, as well as accessibility and ensuring that all of our users, we have well over 500 plus analyst type users across our health system, and then thousands of other end users that need to benefit from it.
Wow. So, Tino, right, hearing all of that, why is UNC such an important example of enterprise scale in Microsoft Fabric?
Yes, of course. I think data warehousing, lakehouse, right? We are core infrastructure. And it kind of what Virginia said resonates with me when I talk to customers. There's so much pent up demand for insights, for analytics that, it's really a requirement to modernize because your organization can only go as fast as its, biggest bottleneck. And you don't want your data infrastructure to be a bottleneck. So, and that's why we're here, right? But as far as, UNC healthcare and similar organizations, obviously it's crucial data and the workloads, like you said, need to be up. So it doesn't matter how many buttons we have. It doesn't matter if we have big buttons, little buttons, big buttons. What matters is the fact that the buttons are up, right?
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. What matters is that they're secure, right? So, and we see everything in the product through that lens, the lens of quality and trust, right? That is the most important thing. And there's very few industries, if any, that rely on us in a bigger way than healthcare.
Yeah. So Ranchini, when I think about this wasn't a pilot, right? We're talking about full board production. And so what did it take to move so that your hospitals and your operations could use Fabric?
for for us to do this in this big bang kind of way, first of all, it took an incredible team of people. So I'll start there. We've had some, and a lot of them are here today. Actually, we have 25 people from UNC Health
Wow. Wow.
that are attending FabCon because it's an investment for us, right? It's not just a lift and shift of a data warehouse. It is investment in our future of where we're heading, of what we're trying to lay down as that solid foundation. And so it really took our people looking at what that architecture needed to look like. And
Yeah.
we were so early with Fabric that not everything was TL
Yeah.
when we were ready for it, right?
Yeah.
So we had to make some decisions around what can we do to still move forward, protect our protected health information as we are making all of these migrations into this data warehouse. But it's partners and it's people to really ensure that we have the right architecture to get there.
Yeah. So Tino, what changes? I think about this, right? When you bring all this together, analytics, data engineering, governance, you bring all this together, what changes?
Yeah, well, we talked about when you modernize into something that's more cloud native,
Yeah.
then you kind of unleash this, pent up demand of analytics for insights across your entire organization. But the danger there, of course, right? If the platform is disparate that you're using, right? If you have a number of vendors, a number of systems, then the risk of messing up multiplies, right? The risk factors multiply, not only because you have to monitor and configure and manage different systems, right? You also have to manage the relationships between them, right? So it becomes like a cat's cradle of risks. And that's why Fabric's strategy of a single governance layer resonates with customers, is because, now you have a single place where everything is controlled, everything is consistent, right? And that in its own greatly reduces, the organizations like UNC Healthcare, and also increases velocity as well, right? Because now you can safely expand and find more use cases.
So this morning in the keynote, I talked about governance, one leg security. And so if you want to enable this broad access, Cheney, to in your insights, but you still want to keep it governed and trusted, how do you do that? How do you
Right.
do that at scale? At scale.
Yeah. So I want to lean into what Tino said, right? I think sometimes we don't think of simplification as a strategy,
Yeah.
but it can be such an impactful strategy. When you
That's
have a Frankenstein solution, security goes out the window, right?
Yeah.
Like it becomes that much harder to manage and
Yeah.
that much more risk gets introduced.
Yeah.
So I mean, simplification was a big part of our strategy. Who is the partner that we could choose that would allow us to start to think about all of the different pieces that we work within and the data and analytics architecture stack? And as you think about governance and all of that, it allows us to build what we initially started as a data fabric approach,
Yeah.
but now also flex with some of our community teams to the data mesh approach.
Yeah. I wish people, whenever they start designing their data architecture, they just step back and go, what do we really need? Sometimes, what do we really need? Because it's like ceremony now to create these medallion architectures that have bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, right? Just take a step back. Maybe you only need stage and a warehouse. Who knows, right? But anyway, so I digress.
Yeah.
But can you tell me, Sachini, can you explain Shire and how it intentionally connects with Microsoft Fabric?
Sure. Yeah. So Shire is our TRE, a trusted research environment, right? And it's something that we partnered with Microsoft on to put into practice. And it's because our data warehouse, if we go back in time, our data warehouse was actually founded to support research. UNC is a really big research institution, and we have this really big healthcare system. So, rich information coming from 20 hospitals across the state, but we needed to continuously evolve not just our data environment for our healthcare operations and clinical practice,
Yeah.
but also for the research side of things. So when you think about that research side of things,
Yeah.
you are often commingling data from not just things that need to happen from our own data environment and how do we connect that back to Fabric to get them more seamless data. We also have new data we're introducing. One of our researchers recently said to us, I need EEG data, right? Eh, or your ECG data, right? Like
Right.
all of this new streaming high volume type data. And Fabric gives us a flexible environment to be able to start adding in these new data types
Oh,
and then connect it back to a secure spot
yeah.
that our researchers can work within where we can protect that data for that environment.
Wow. Okay. So, Tino, one of the things that I used to joke about, I still joke about it a lot, is
You joke a lot.
yeah, I do joke a lot. But people don't think about governance. They don't think about it until there's actually a problem,
Yes.
until Social Security's numbers get exposed, or some type of PII gets exposed. But in regulated industries like healthcare, how does a modern Fabric data warehouse help protect that, help enforce that governance?
Yeah, I think security is all about protecting kind of like the Swiss cheese risks, right? Like the holes in the cheese line up across multiple stacks, and then you have problems, right? Well, maybe I'm just this is probably a terrible analogy here, but we're more like provolone, right?
Oh,
We don't in that sense. But I want to say that Fabric Data Warehouse is an example of what we call like a serverless technology.
yeah.
And a lot of times you'll see in the industry, we're serverless, therefore no knobs, no controls whatsoever. Things just are just magic. But I think there's a balance here. And thinking from first principles of what does the customer need, what are the things that are required for folks like Rachini to do her job.
Yeah.
There is the kind of like there's a sweet spot that of knobs of controls that are required, right? So you go beyond serverless, but you don't quite go to like this huge amount of controls and knobs, right? You go to just the right amount. And that's a challenge, right? And so again, like we try to listen to our customers, we try to engage as much as possible to understand what problems they're facing and try to solve those problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of Ranchini, and speaking of doing your job now, what's now possible for clinicians, operators, and researchers that wasn't possible before?
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the sheer aspect of you can have your data scientists solving clinical problems with our clinicians, things like um, you know, diseases that are probably less common. We've actually got a group that we've stood up now that is focusing on rare diseases, that's
Wow.
looking at what is the data pipelines we need to create for that. How do we start to build in-house solutions that can start to address it
Wow.
at scale and faster, right? So the having this kind of environment as that foundation allows us to open the doors to what people bring to us. It's no longer a no, we can't accommodate that. It
Uh,
is a let's solve the hard problems together and let's partner on making sure that those happen.
yeah. Let's take a look. Let's take a look. Right. We're not just gonna close the door on it. We might be able to solve this problem. And so Tina, here's something interesting. So what does UNC's deployment, because of what they've deployment, what does that teach us about data warehouses for trust instead of performance? Because everybody focuses, oh, it has to be fast, it has to be fast. But security and trust should be top of mind for us. So what does it
Absolutely.
make you think about?
What does it make? Say it again. What
I'm
does it make
sorry.
me think? Yeah.
So what does UNC
Yeah.
Health's deployment teach us
Yeah.
about designing the data warehouse for
Yeah.
governance?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, kind of to reiterate, right, the importance of core infrastructure and how we, again, what's more important is the fact that we're up, the fact that we're trusted, the fact that we're secure, the fact that things are working is significantly more important than all the really cool stuff that we're announcing. Although that's fun to be on stage and talk about all that stuff,
Yeah.
the majority of the effort goes into the things underneath the hood that nobody even knows about, right? So when when things are working, right, then you don't talk about it, and that's how we want it to. Yeah,
So for everyone that's watching today, or if they're watching this on YouTube, Ranchini, if they're
yeah,
just starting this journey, what would you tell them?
Yeah.
What lessons have you learned?
Sure. I mean, I think first of all, any kind of migration into a new environment is not for the faint of heart, which
No.
we all know.
Yeah.
It was not without its trials and
Sure,
tribulations,
sure.
but I think it's about keeping the eye on the prize.
Yeah.
So, to your point of do we look far enough ahead? We knew that this was step one of probably a 5 to 10 step process. We're aiming for conversational analytics. We believe that's the future,
Yeah.
being able to provide insights in real time, not waiting in a queue for a really long extended period of time, right? Like that's where we're headed. And so if you're heading into it, I would say align all of your benefits, all the gains, all the things that you are running towards,
Wow.
because it's going to keep your team moving
Yeah.
together, right? Because at the end of the day, it's exhausting, and we put our folks through the ringer for the speed of which we needed to convert. But it's been an incredible outcome from where we are now heading into our BI modernization work.
So like little things, little rewards
Yes.
all the way along the
Yes.
way. All right. Well, thank you both. Thank you,
Yeah.
Rachini. Thank you, Tino. Go ahead.
Before we jump off, right? So today, in just a couple of hours at 3 o'clock, I have the Fabric Data Warehouse core note where one of Rachini's teammates, Sean McDonald, is going to talk about how they're using our platform as well. So please come join. Lots of announcements, lots of cool stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you both, Rachini, Tino.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us on FabCon TV. Thank you all
Thank
for
you.
being here with us. And for the people that's watching, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
What a conversation. Everything you've been watching here was captured live at FabCon and SequelCon in Atlanta, from the interviews to the demos to the community insights that make these events so special. If you're into Microsoft Fabric, SQL, and the future of data, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And speaking of next, we're taking this show to Barcelona. FabCon and SequelCon Barcelona are happening this September 2026, and it's going to be packed with big announcements, deep technical sessions, and one amazing global data community. Hit the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen to register and use code FABTV to save €200 off your ticket. As always, thank you so much for watching. Keep being awesome, and we'll see you in the next one.